While there are lots of pros about the MazdaSpeed 3, there's also lots of cons. Let's review that list and see what's going on. Today, we're going over the pros and cons of owning a MazdaSpeed 3. A stock MazdaSpeed 3, that is, not modified. I've owned 4 MazdaSpeed 3s in my life. I've owned probably like 10 Mazda 3s at this point. I'm pretty well, familiar with the platform and everything. So this is pretty much the pros and cons of what I know of the most common thing that people like and that people get bugged about. So before we get into our first topic in the pro section, the fall 2025 drop for Skilled Supply will be dropping on September 28th. If you guys head to the website right now and sign up with your email, I'm going to send you a discount code to use when this drops so you can save a little bit of money. I will see you guys on the 28th of September at skilledsupply.com for when this drops. So let's be honest, the first thing I want to get over is the raw performance of the MazdaSpeed 3. Think back to 2007, this car gets released. Well, it's 2006, this car came out. You get the 2.7 MazdaSpeed 3. 263 horsepower, 280 foot-pounds of torque from a 4-cylinder turbocharged Mazda. Now, I know the Speed 6 actually came out prior, so that's still crazy, because that was all-wheel drive. So just think about that. Just let that sit in, okay? The GTI at that time was making, like, what, 200 horsepower? And then you had, like, some other slow hot hatches like that were still like NA, like was the ZX2 around at that point? So you literally have the fastest hot hatch in Northern America that just dropped. Okay, that's crazy. These cars are raw. There's no happy medium, when you're going into boost. There's no like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna get into boost and everything's gonna be good. No, it's like literally you hold on. So with that crazy power statistic, you're also got a limited slip differential. You're gonna be locked in on those corners. You're gonna have lots of grip when you're launching or just doing pulls in general. You're also getting a 0 to 60 time of under 5.8 seconds. That's pretty good. It puts, even up to like modern day cars, it's putting a lot of those cars in competition. So like with any hot hatch, let's kind of talk about the space. One of our pros here is the amount of space that we get in the interior with these cars, and I've always been impressed. Obviously with a hot hatch, you're kind of always like destined to get more space. It's kind of the point of a hot hatch. Go fast and have 4 doors normally, and be able to kind of transport stuff around. I'm 6'2", I'm pretty skinny. I fit comfortable in this car, and I'm actually not rolled back all the way, although I do have my back tilted quite a bit, but I have a lot of leg room. Even my right leg, I rest my right leg against the center console here quite often. As for Mazda 3s in general go, I've always fit in them. As for leg room, I'd have to roll mine up a little bit for probably someone to fit comfortably in the back, but even then I still have a little bit of, I can still drive with the seat rolled up a little bit, and yes, I have driven with people sitting behind me before. I used to bring a lot of wheels and tires around inside and out my cars, and even on the sedans, but the second gen Speeds, you can fit full size like 18-inch tires, 4 full-size 18x9 wheels, and have them all separate in your cabin. Obviously you have to do a little persuasion and stuff like that, but comfortably fitting 4 wheels and tires in this car is kind of impressive to me. I don't think you could do that in, a GTI or, something kind of like smaller like that. So now a pro that you won't hear a lot of people talk about, in my opinion, is the underrated look. Now, 90% of the population are going to say that the MazdaSpeed 3 is a Mazda 3. It looks like a Mazda 3. Well, it does. I think the first gen looks like a Mazda 3. The only different thing about a first gen MazdaSpeed 3 to a regular Mazda 3 is the front bumper, the hood, the front fenders, the rear bumper, and the rear wing. But they weren't so, different to the fact that you're like, oh wow, it's a totally different car. It just kind of looked like a Mazda 3 high trim model, or something like that. The second gen, I think, looks like a hot hatch. It's got what I would consider it looks like a shark. The front looks like a shark, but this one has a hood scoop. It's got quite a big wing compared to regular Mazda 3, and it definitely, and the wheels that you get from factory as well, definitely give off that impression that something's going on. But with that being said, these cars look amazing when they're done right. With this car being on air suspension and everything, you'd think, you're like, wow, it's, you know, aired out, it gets a lot of attention and stuff like that. I got a lot of attention more from just driving on the road. I get, you know, thumbs up and, you know, people hyping me up and stuff just from driving on the road, seeing other cars. People love the look of this car. When someone knows it's the MazdaSpeed 3, some people don't even, I've been tagged and stuff where it's like, oh, Mazda 3. Some people don't even know what it is, but people, you know, people still like this car. The look of, in my opinion, the first gen, I like the look of the first gen, and I mean the second gen, just this MazdaSpeed 3 in general, just has an underrated look to it, and when people see it, they appreciate it. So the handling in these cars are decent, but they could be better, and the pro behind that is the only thing to make these cars really, really phenomenal handling, adding a rear sway bar. Now you do get a stiffer rear sway bar from factory than the Mazda 3, and it does feel really, really good. However, the suspension rides a little bit stiffer from factory, so it can be a little bit miserable. And what's really interesting is once you hit those corners, suspension gets a little bit soft. It's really, really good how it is, but there's definitely that one, there's a missing thing about it that you need to add to get really, really good handling hot hatch here. Okay, so one of the biggest cons that I hear people talking a lot about, I don't deal with it a lot myself, is torque steer and boosting through corner. If your wheel is angled a little bit, if you're not on a smooth road and you're making a ton of horsepower, people say you get it from stock. I didn't really deal with it from stock. Some of you guys are just kind of crazy. The torque steer can be insane. Now, like I said, you can definitely not deal with it. I don't deal with the torque steer in this car. When you're going in boost and you're on a flat road, you hold on to both hands on the wheel and you hold on. Boost while going through corners, and if you do, then not a lot. You got to keep it on the down low. There's one time torque steer has really, really scared me, and that is when I was driving with no hands and I was wide open throttle and I took my hand off the shift and then I went into it, and with no hand on the wheel, the car just went completely sideways. Obviously, this is going to be a con that you're probably going to face. Like I said, I don't think it's a big deal. If you kind of understand, you know, how to hold your wheel, it is what it is. Obviously, you're going to have a little side to side, but that's what makes it fun. These cars are raw, they're rowdy, and they're fun. Now, we're kind of going back to where I was talking about the suspension part and how this car is stiff and doesn't drive nice around corners, around specific corners. So that's one of the cons I want to talk about, is unrewarding suspension. So these cars came factory with stiffer front springs, and you can really, really tell. I find the front to be a little bouncy at some time. It's a really, really awkward. I'm not sure if the shocks were changed to go with the spring rates, but it just feels really awkwardly, sometimes bouncy at some points. The rear feels fine. I don't have a problem with the rear, but something about the fronts is just like, it really makes the front feel a lot more heavier than it is, I think. Something just isn't adding up there. Now, when we talk about handling, again, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it is the ride height. So you have this really, really stiff, kind of bouncy suspension when you're, you know, just driving along, you know, hitting bumps and stuff like that. And then you hit a corner and it's like, where did all that stiffness go? It's so funny. I think anybody with stock suspension can agree with me. It hurts, you hit a bump, it's like, oh, that wasn't cushiony. And then you hit a corner and you're like, hold on, where did it go? Like I said in the pros, it can be a positive and it can be a pro, but there is room to upgrade. So I think there's something that's a little bit important to note. People think the second gens are newer, so they'll be like, I want the newer Mazda. I don't like the interior in the second gen. It's cheap, it breaks easy, and it's just like, it's just not nice. I don't think it's nice in here. The factory radio that you get is all knobby and there's so many buttons and it's gross and it looks like it's an alien looking at you. The wheel there's no shape to the wheel at all. It's just big and it's obnoxious. The seats suck. I don't like the seats. They're not any different from the regular Mazda 3 seats. With the first gens they were, by the way. They're very uncomfortable. Not comfortable at all. If you're taking any plastics apart in this car and it's colder than 10 degrees Celsius, probably gonna break, because I don't think I've ever taken anything apart on this car inside that hasn't broke. What else can I roast in here? Let's see. There's just something about the design that just feels like there's much going on, but there's so little at the same time. There's a lot of dash on this car. for example, but there's just so little MazdaSpeed feel. And that's why I say it's very second gen only. I love the first gen interiors. Something about the first gen Mazda 3 interiors are so nice. Everything just feels good. It feels good around the hands. Like, I can't hold the steering wheel like from side to side. Listen to this. It's just, ugh, I can't hold it comfortably. I have to like hold it up here or down here. Put leather on one side and cloth down the middle with some special red texture design to make it feel like MazdaSpeed 3. And then in 2014 they said, yeah, we're not making this anymore. If you're a big interior kind of person for some reason and you have to make a choice based off interior, first gen, 100% all the way. I'm sure you've heard, if you've seen a lot of buyer's guides or what to look out for MazdaSpeed 3s, but one thing to note is how tedious they are to maintain. So this all kind of matters down to the fact if your MazdaSpeed 3 has had a good previous owner or not. It also matters if you take care of your car. I've had 4 MazdaSpeed 3s and 3 out of 4 have been incredible to me, reliability term. The one car that was bad, I knew when I was buying it that it had issues and the previous owners weren't probably the kind of people that I would buy a car from. It turned out to end up worse than what I had expected, and then it ended up by being it wasn't a great car. If you go onto the MazdaSpeed forums on Facebook, full of like, oh, my car's bad, or I'm having so many issues with this, or I have a built block and I'm having issues with this, or I did this and now it's having this issue. It is insane that the amount of like people that have issues with a car, but then you ask them about it or you see how they drive it and it kind of makes sense. Bad previous owners, they're romping on the thing constantly. Guys, this thing's not a race car. It's also Ford. Unfortunately, you know, the MazdaSpeed 3 has its big issues like any other car. Obviously, you've probably heard of the VVT and the timing chain issue. Throughout its life, we can get really, really large carbon deposits on the intake valves. So intake cleaning and then having your injectors obviously leak is quite common. And then getting those seals, you know, replaced, and then obviously like a new injector set sort of thing. You can have issues obviously with the turbo. Obviously you've heard of probably smoking turbo before, and that can be a bit of a hassle. I mean, if your previous owner had, you know, the turbo replaced at a decent time, or the turbo doesn't have a lot of K on it and it's fine when you got it and then it turned out to be an issue, it's, you know, it can be driving habits. You know, these cars, again, not only maintenance tedious, but they're also very driver habit tedious as well. Certain ways to drive it. You know, you can't, stay out of boost and 6 sort of thing, or you'll stretch your timing chain. If you're, you know, getting into boost under 3000 K, then you're gonna, it's just not good for any component. So, I mean, we've gone over everything. What do you guys think about my pros and cons list? Am I like right? Did I miss anything? Let me know. I want to know what your guys' pros and cons list is. I've been with this platform for over 10 years and there's no con about this car that would turn me away from it, from either buying one or keeping it long term. These are great cars. As long as you take care of them, you'll enjoy all those pros and you'll forget about all those cons. Guys, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join me at Scaled Supply on September 28th. Leave a like on the video, comment down below. Other than that, guys, keep it real. I'll see y'all in the next one.